automatically makes your head do this. Ooh, feels good. How you doing, everybody? Nick DiVirgilio here. Welcome back to Groovy Thursdays. We made it to Groove 27. The second half of the year starts right now, and I'm taking a little bit of a left turn with the groove this week, going down the ska road. Ska is a super fun style of music to play drums on. When I was a kid, one of my very best friends named Keith Hopkins was a huge reggae fan. He turned me on to reggae music. It's the first place I really got into Bob Marley, bands like that. He also turned me on to ska music. Bands like this one, The English Beat, or The Selector, or Madness, anything like that. I really dove in pretty deep with all these bands because the rhythm in these bands, in this music, was just super cool. And so I started to learn how to play some of these styles and get into it more and more and realized what a fun type of music this is. And it's really educational in the drumming department too, because there's a lot of feel. There is some technical stuff going on in there as well. You got to know what's going on. It's just a really cool thing to do. So I thought I'd turn it on to you guys as well. Let's get into it. Groove number 27. The song is called Twist and Crawl from the band The English Beat. Groove number 27. Let's do it. The groove's in 4/4 time, right about 175 BPM. You could fudge that either way, a few BPM if you want, but that bright tempo is really what gives the feel to this drum groove. The drummer on this record is named Everett Morton, and what a great feel he had for this style of music. I imagine the band recorded this song live. The record was released back in 1980, and his groove sort of morphs a little bit as the song goes. He's not playing the exact same thing all the way through the song. For this purpose, here for our Groovy Thursdays purpose, I made the groove basically just a bar long, right? It does kind of the same thing, and then we tweak it as it goes. So the transcription is pretty long, but I just wanted to write out everything that I did in the demonstration. What I did in my demo, and you'll see it on the transcription, is I did these 5-bar phrases, 4 bars of the straight groove, and then 1 bar with a little bit of a fill. And I'll show you what that little fill is, because it's just like one hit, if you want to call that a fill. I did that 3 times, so you'll see 3 endings on the transcription. After the 3rd ending, you just kind of play all the way to the end. And what I did here is I made it a little bit more difficult for our Groovy Thursdays hang here, kind of just to take it up a little bit of a notch. I'll explain everything I did, but in the last 4 bars before the outro little fill to end the groove, there's a polyrhythm happening between your left hand and the rest of your body. So with all that said, let's get into it. The very first bar in the transcription is a fill to get us into the groove, and it's similar to what's on the record. It's a typical reggae-esque kind of fill. You can do anything you want here, but just as long as it's peppy, it feels good, it's lively, and kind of propels you into the groove. One thing you can try when you play a little fill like this is to play at the edge of the snare drum, so it sounds a little timbali-esque. You know, you get that ring out of your drum shell, play it with the tip of your sticks towards the edge, and then when you switch to the tom, it's a nice, real juxtaposition of sound, and it's just lively in the ears. Now onto the groove. You're going to notice a couple of things here right off the bat. Kick drum playing all quarter notes. Boom, 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 boom. Very simple, but driving, and it's important to keep that time nice and solid and just peppy, right? Nice and lively, lots of energy. In the hi-hat hand, you're playing just 1/8 notes all the way across. There is some opening and closing of the hi-hat as we go throughout, but it's just straight 1/8 notes all the way through. One thing I'd like you to consider when you're playing straight 1/8 notes in your hi-hat hand and quarter notes in your kick drum, consider that feel and how to morph it and to make it interesting to you as the player, because it's really simple, and that's kind of the basis of this groove throughout this song. But what can you do to make it more interesting? Well, one thing you can do is to utilize your whole hi-hat cymbal, the bell, the edge, the bow, the meat of it all. Change the sound with the tip of your stick, the shoulder of your stick. Really kind of morph the sound. You can make it sound all kinds of different ways just by playing around with your hi-hat cymbal. Those little sound changes will make this groove a lot more interesting, especially if you're going to play something like this in a live setting. The listener, when you make those little changes, you know, they'll feel it. They'll tune it in, even though they may not know what the heck you're doing or even know what it is, but it'll sound good to the audience. So do those little kinds of things when you practice something like this. Make it more interesting to yourself and see how you can experiment with the sound of one piece of your kit. Just morph the sound here or there, and I think you'll find it a really cool exercise. Now for your snare hand, this is all side stick except for fills, so you really want to get a nice side stick sound. Sometimes I play with the butt of the stick rather than the tip side of the stick to get a beefier side stick sound. It's up to you as long as it's solid and consistent. Check out the first bar. Your snare hand plays right on beat 3 and on 4 and. That's the basis of this whole groove. On 3 and 4 and. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4 and. When you get those driving little eighth notes, that 3 and 4 and is really the skip that gives the beat life. Bob your head a little bit like this, and you're off to the races. Do that groove for 3 bars. Then on the 4th bar, you add one more side stick on 3 and the last 16th note of beat 3. And you get that just that little bit more of a skip with that one extra 16th note. Let's sing it out here real quick. Here's our pulse. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 and a 4 and 1, 2, 3 and a 4 and 1, 2, 2, So nothing else is changing. You're just adding that 1/16th note. Then on the 5th bar, this is where you're going to add your fill. And what I did on purpose was to do really simple things, kind of the way Everett Morton did on the record. And the fill I played the first time around was just a single snare drum hit on 4 and. So the beat stays exactly the same. On the 5th bar, you play the side stick on beat 3, and then instead of a side stick on 4 and, I just played a snare drum hit. But I tried to do that kind of timbali-esque thing. I did the snare drum hit on the edge of the snare drum to give it more of a ping, more of a, like a pow. It just kind of flies out. The sound totally changes and flies off the drum kit. What's cool about this is that you lay back that one little hit. It's a real nuanced sort of thing. And then you get right back to the groove, right on the downbeat of beat 1, and do the whole same cycle again. Play the groove for 4 bars. On bar 4, you do that little skip with the extra 16th note. And then the second time around, I just did a single tom hit. Sometimes it's the littlest things you do that have the most impact to the sound. Then I did the whole cycle again, this time on the 3rd ending. The 3rd time I do the fill, I make it a little bit harder, and I do a buzz on beat 4 with my left hand directly into a snare drum hit on the 4 and. So, brr-ka, brr-ka. It adds a little technicality to the fill. Also remember, when you do this fill, your kick drum's still playing the quarter notes and your hi-hat hand's still playing the eighth notes. There's even some open hi-hats in there. So these things don't change. It's just that fill in your left hand's changing little by little. I just mentioned the open hi-hat, and most of the time I play it on beat 4 and throughout all of this groove. It's just a little ear candy thing that adds a little more life to the groove, a little more energy, and it's a cool way to get back into beat 1, the downbeat of the next bar, when you have that stab right before it. So now we'll get on to the rest of the groove where I change up the beat a little bit. Let me reiterate, these little ear candy things where you utilize all of the hi-hat cymbal or anything around your drum kit, the little stabs here and there on the hi-hat and the side stick, those little ear candy things are what will set you apart from everybody else. When you can manipulate the sound of your instrument however you decide in the moment, it's really cool and a lot of fun to do. So when you're in your practice room, mess around with the sound, all while trying to keep the groove nice and solid. It's a great practice tool. Okay, let's get into the rest of the groove here and how I made it a little bit different. After the 3rd ending, after that 3rd little fill, I started to repeat some of the actions. So I play 3 bars of the main groove, side stick on beat 3 and 4 and with the little hi-hat stab. Then I play 4 bars of the groove with the added 16th note on 3 and that last 16th note of beat 3. Then, this is where it gets fun. This is where the polyrhythm comes in that I mentioned earlier. What's happening here is that your left hand, the side stick, is going to start playing every 3 16th notes. Meanwhile, your right hand, your hi-hat hand, is going to still play the straight 8th notes. Your kick drum is still playing the quarter notes, and what happens is that you get a 4/3 thing happening. Your left hand, the side stick, is going to sound like a triplet happening in the middle of the straight 8ths and quarter notes. Now, it sounds hard, but it's pretty natural movement once you get the coordination down. On the transcription, I'm going to go back 4 bars from the outro fill, and let's start there. The first side stick happens on the 2nd 16th note of beat 1, then on beat 2, then on 2E and then on 3 and, then on 4E, 2nd 16th note of beat 4. Then you go into the next bar, and it happens on beat 1, 1E and 2 and, 3E, and then 4, E and So what's happening is that side stick is being displaced a little bit in each bar, but it's just kind of a straight line. Every 3/16 notes, you just keep playing. So just do the first bar first and get the coordination down, and then it'll start becoming a rolling motion. It'll start kind of feel like it's rolling downhill, this sort of thing. Let me sing out this feel for you. I'll start on just that first bar when this thing starts to happen here, and we'll kind of loop it around here for a second. So here's your pulse. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll sing out the rhythm of the side stick. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. See? 1, 2, 3, 4. Like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, what I suggest is to do just what I did. Get away from your drum kit for just a second and sing and vocalize the rhythm. It'll internalize it for you and make it a lot easier. Now, what you do is you just kind of keep it going. You don't have to do it just for 4 bars. You can just kind of repeat this for as long as you want, just to kind of get the coordination down. So let's do that. Here's the pulse, and I'll just make this kind of go on bar after bar, and you'll start to feel it and hear it. Check it out. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now, what's really cool, if you want to feel the polyrhythm, turn the beat, the pulse, into what the side stick is playing, and you'll hear the triplet. See if you can follow me here. Here's the normal pulse. I'll start singing out that rhythm. Then I'll switch my clap, which is the pulse, to the side stick, and you'll hear it change. Check this out. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a little weird to do it first, but if you can do that, if you can figure out how to go back and forth, change the pulse around, boy, you're going to get into some really cool metric modulations, and you can utilize this stuff in your progressive rock playing, in your sort of jazz fusion playing. You can kind of feel multiple grooves and multiple beats going on at the same time. Now, the next challenge for this particular groove is to do this for 4 bars and to get into a fill to finish off the groove. So if you're going to do this just for 4 bars, you need to be able to hear and feel in your brain where the 1 is, even though your left hand is doing a polyrhythm, playing every 3/16 notes. And that's a challenge and a great thing to practice on a groove like this. One last thing to point out, since you're trying to feel multiple rhythms at the same time, is to look where certain things land at the same time. In the first bar, on beat 2, the downbeat of beat 2, the side stick and the kick drum play at the same time. On the second bar, it's not till beat 4 that the side stick and the kick drum play at the same time. On the third bar, it happens on the downbeat of beat 3, and on the fourth bar, it happens on the downbeat of beat 2 again. So when you're practicing this, try to hear where those beats come together, where those things come together at the same time, and that'll help you realize where you are in the bar. Where you are in the bar. I made it rhyme. Then to round this whole thing out, I just did 2 bars of fill. I did the same fill I did at the beginning on the first bar, and then a little triplety thing on my side snare that I didn't have the snare wires on, made it sound a little bit more like a timbale, and then just a crash on beat 1. The key being to get out of that groove where you're playing the polyrhythms into a fill, and then on a downbeat to end the whole thing. Something to consider is to play those 2 bars of fill and then go right back into the groove again. It's always good to practice playing these grooves, especially the one with the polyrhythm happening, and do a fill and get back into the groove, and do a fill and get back into the groove, play 4 bars of fill, play a groove, anything like that. Getting back and forth between fills and groove is really important, because what is easy to do for a lot of beginner drummers, amateur drummers, even pro drummers for sure, is to rush and or drag the fills. That's the hard part, because especially when you're playing live and you put a fill somewhere, you have energy and everything going on around you in a live setting. It's easy to rush these things or drag them, however you naturally tend to go. So when you're in your practice room, really try to practice playing fills and getting back into your grooves, whether it's this one or anything else. And there you go, groove number 27, the song Twist and Crawl from the English beat record, I Just Can't Stop It. Now, even if you're not into reggae or ska music, in my opinion, it's really cool to get into the nuance of grooves like this, other stuff, just to add to your drumming vocabulary. You'll never know when you're in your band, you're creating a drum part for your band, or you're going into a session, you might need to pull out a beat like this, or you're just trying to think of something to do to add a little bit of flavor to whatever it is you're creating. To know these little things of grooves or styles that might not be your total cup of tea just adds to your overall drumming vocabulary, which is always a good thing. If you like what's going on here at Groovy Thursdays, I ask that you like this video, subscribe to the channel, send this video to all your friends, share it with all your friends, and bring on the comments and suggestions for future grooves. We got a lot more fun grooves to come. Next week is groove number 28. We'll see you here next week, everybody. Cheers.